Good evening, everyone. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Today is our last show for this season. We want to thank you all for tuning in over these last 13 weeks. My name is Quandra Spates, and I'm here with Patrick Brutus as well as Robert McKay. And this show is brought to you by Help One Save One. Help One Save One is a community-inspired organization. Our objectives include educating and empowering the community with information designed to inform and enlighten. CAN TV is a live interactive show. Please call in at 312-738-1060. Once again, it's 312-738-1060. We strongly encourage you all to call in if you hear something interesting and you want to share your views. Last week we had Paul Pearson on, who talked about juvenile justice. It was a very good show. You can always check it out on YouTube. As mentioned in previous shows, the Kerner Commission report has been our foundation to support the topics we've been discussing over the last 13 weeks. It has been our intent to create a progressive series of information discussions regarding our journey as African Americans by examining who we are, where we want to be, where we wanted to be in the past versus where we are today. As we wrap up today, we would like to recap over the last 6 weeks. The topics presented were designed to educate and support our positions on how the above societal issues impact the African American community in one way or another. So we discussed PTSD, civic engagement, police brutality, estate planning, family law, restorative justice, and juvenile justice. So, Patrick and Robert, quickly, 50 years ago, the infamous Kerner Commission report found that poverty and institutional racism was driving inner city violence. The report declared our nation was moving towards two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. Do you agree with the statement as it relates to today versus 50 years ago?
Well, 50 years ago, that statement was incorrect because they said it was driving the nation, the two nations, one black, one white, separate and unequal. Mm-hmm. They were already that. It was that. And the black community was attempting to elevate themselves in this country. And the white community, which identified by the Kerner Commission report, was preventing that, was in fact creating the problems in the black community.
I just want to say good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. And this is the call-in show. Please call in and let's talk about it. Robert, I've come to discover over the last 13 weeks that you are a Chicago celebrity. You are often calling in on radio stations to give us good perspective, and I'm happy to have been sitting here by your side for these last few months, talking about the issues that matter to Chicagoans. Quandra, I also feel the same way. You've done a great job of putting us all together here to talk about these issues. And you're right. The Kerner Commission report talked about something that was very important, Robert. And I believe the premise that Quandra raised was that we are unequal. We were, and I think there is strong evidence today to support that the inequality continues.
Well, in fact, Fred Harris, the last surviving member of that Kerner Commission report, came to Chicago and conducted a forum over at the University of Illinois Students Forum building. And he himself stated that the conditions in the black community today are worse than they were 50 years ago. So with that, and when we see things, evidence of that culminating from, and I would venture to say up to the Supreme Court, because just yesterday there was a ruling in the Quintonio
Greer and the Betty Jones case in Chicago in 2016.
2015.
Officer Rialmo killed two Chicago citizens in what could arguably be an unprovoked attack.
Yeah, absolutely. It was unprovoked. But the jury yesterday, their verdict was that the shooting was unjustifiable. However, the judge, prior to the trial, the jury was given a questionnaire. And on the questionnaire, there were boxes to check. And one of the questions was the officer in fear of his life? And they checked yes. So after the commission, we have a caller.
Okay, great.
We'll come back to that.
Hello, caller. What's your question or comment?
Yes, I called the last 2 weeks. My name is Ray. You know,
Hi,
it's
Ray.
a great show. It's a great show as always. But I want to say this. I want to thank you and the two young gentlemen next to you for being so patient with all the callers and having such a good show.
Thank you.
Now I want to say this. I was talking about dummy down tests for the teachers and the students, and the gentleman in the middle said, well, they're dummying down all over the United States. That's true, but I don't care about the rest of the United States. I care about my city. It should stop here right away. I don't care. So if that's what he thinks, then if they have a problem with water or a problem with anything, then well, the other 50 states have it. No, take care of Chicago first. Then we could learn and teach the other 50 states how Chicago is a great city again. So thank you again, and I just want to say that education is the key.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, and I'll just have a great show.
Thank you so much, caller, for that comment.
Well, Cole, I respect what you're saying, and I think we need to look at the organization's name. Will you flip on that? The organization's name, Help One Save One, and we need to be a undivided community. And when you speak about Chicago, I know that that whole process of Chicago, and we're concerned about our locale. All politics is local, but we came here as a group and we were divided up. So that's the premise of the process of this Kerner Commission. We're divided up and we're separated and we're fighting amongst each other. All around this country, we need to come together and to identify our issues and so that we can correct them.
Getting back to the case that we were just talking about, I thought it was a considerable and irresponsible overreach by the judge without calling back the jury to clarify whether or not what they meant by answering that question on the questionnaire aligned with their decision to award the family the $1 million that the judge revoked, obviously. Quandra, you're a lawyer. What was your interpretation or take on the issue?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't have a take on this particular issue.
I'll answer that for
Thank you.
Quandra.
Appreciate that.
Well, first of all, they cited a Supreme Court case, which was decided in 1985. It was Tennessee versus Garner. And in that case, an officer shot a young man fleeing from a suspected home invasion. And his dad sued. He won, but the appellate court turned it over, and he went to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that an officer who's in fear of his life can shoot to kill. But I'm just summarizing now. But an officer can shoot to kill, and the judge yesterday cited that case that this officer was justified, citing the Supreme Court case.
Now, was that the case that the city was making on behalf of the officer?
No, that was she reversed the verdict that the shooting was unjustified.
Oh, that was her opinion.
That was her opinion, and she used the Supreme Court case. But if you look at it, had there been a video such as in the Van Dyke and Laquan McDonald case, they could not have made that argument.
Right, and so this also goes into, the estate planning, and I'm sorry, apologies, the police brutality episode that we had with our guest, Mike Savoy Elliott, who also spoke to us about some of these pertinent issues that are ongoing in Chicago still during the last 50 years, which again continues to mark the inequality that black people in Chicago face at the hands of law enforcement, public policymakers, and legislators.
Well, I know in this conversation, he talked a lot about police accountability and transparency and creating an independent review board that encompassed the community, and saying that is one way to maybe bring trust and build better police practices within the community. But I'm thinking we're going to need more than that. We're going to need our officers to be trained. We're going to need to have some type of punity to officers who are excessive, maybe tied into their bonuses, maybe tied into their pay. What do you all think about?
Well, I know for sure that we need police men from the community and police women from the community. when you go back to the Kerner Commission, and the Kerner Commission identified that the problems in the black community were caused by the white community. They admitted that. So when you have the black community not having police officers who can patrol the community and relate to the community, and as a police officer to a resident, then you're going to have issues because you have people coming from outside that community who don't relate or understand the dynamics that are going on in that community.
Well, I know Lisa Manigan had several forums throughout the city, and I went to a few of them. I'm assuming that maybe you all attended as well. But one of the suggestions came up, or I suggested maybe having the police officers to live in the communities that they serve and protect. And I got a lot of pushback regarding that, like in the actual, communities that they patrol.
Well, you know,
What do you guys think? I don't know. I think if we have more police officers in our community, maybe we can build that trust. We can build that that relationship with them if we can see them and see them as ordinary citizens.
Well, we know for sure that during Richard J. Daley's tenure, he refused to hire black employees from in this police department, fire department, and public works, which is streets and sands in Chicago. And it wasn't until after Daley passed away that, because during that period, the federal fundings were stopped in Chicago, and there he said that he didn't need it. So once Daley passed away in 1976, the Landis became there, and he agreed to hiring black people, and that's when you had a huge influx of police officers black police officers going on the police department, black firefighters going on the fire department, and black folk being hired in streets and sands in the city of Chicago. Now that is reversed, that is going back, because they were mandated with consent decrees to hire from the black community to employ so that we could have better relationships amongst our community with the city of Chicago.
Isn't that impressive to know that over the 200-year history of Chicago, nearly 200 years, that a diversified public civilian workforce in our first responders and public works labor force has only been diversified for 40 years. That is alarming.
Diversified to what degree? Diversity can come
Well,
as someone's definition. Who defines
that black
diversity?
people were able to be hired, trained, and employed by the city in these particular key departments, whereas Quandra stated we have an issue in regards to how the sensitivity of how police officers, for example, patrol our neighborhoods and how that is not happening at a level that we could confidently tell our viewing public at home that is a good thing.
Well, we know for sure that the numbers in the employment from the black community has gone back to the Richard J. Daley years.
Yeah.
Because currently, there was a contract with the city of Chicago's fire department that 30% of the fire department be black employees. Now they're less than 7%. It was 30% black and 15% Latino. And those numbers are down for the black community, they're less than 7%.
So when you also factor all this in, and you look at how our neighborhoods are being policed and how maybe there are over-aggressive arrests and investigations and patrolling, it leads right into where we had a guest, Jose Wilson of Antonio's Response, who was a leading advocate in establishing the first restorative justice court at the Cook County level on the west side. And so where our young people, ages 17 to 26, are learning measures to actually bring peace and healing so that they have a greater understanding of how to control themselves and come to a level of atonement while they're in the system as on their way out. And I think that, all these things I think we've done with the leadership of Quandra to bring to our viewers information that really gives us a behind the curtain look at what's happening in the city.
I agree. I think okay, well, we have a caller. Hello, caller. What's your question or comment?
Yes. I just. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You might need to turn down something, maybe a radio or something. We can hear
Okay, give me
feedback.
1 second.
Hello?
Okay, well, you'll call back
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
get disconnected. So just working with our young folks and seeing that process happen behind the walls is a good thing to know that where true rehabilitation should be occurring, it's happening at a very pilot level, but hopefully we can see greater things happening in the future.
Yeah, like you said, it's happening at a very, very pilot level, and at this point, we really don't know how effective these programs are. And I think at the end of the day, it's very important that we are in a position to be able to measure that and to ensure that the people who are being sent into these programs are really being rehabilitated, and that this restorative justice is helping not only the perpetrator but also the victim. And that is really the purpose of that, the whole restorative justice program. And we also had Paul Pearson on to talk about juvenile justice. And unfortunately, these restorative justice programs do not reach into the juvenile detention center, which I think is also imperative that we teach our children a better way of handling their aggression, helping them being I guess, a better resource to help them stay out of the justice system, the criminal justice system.
Well, when you speak about the children, having the children learn from the parents, and we have issues where diet, socialization, lifestyles, negative concepts are introduced to the community, and the children are like sponges. They will pick this up, and they will react or act upon what they've learned.
But that kind of leads us like into the family law when we talk about the justice system and whether or not it treats blacks and whites differently. But we have a lot of grandparents in our community who are raising their grandchildren. And I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think a lot of grandparents are out there robbing, stealing, killing, or doing a lot of these things that these young people are doing. So when you say they're learning from their parents, a lot of their parents probably may be absent from the home and they're being raised by their grandparents, which
Well, I think it could also be the lack of learning from the absence of parents. In a destabilized home, which has been the trend over the last 50 years in the black community, we've seen a number of family units broken up by law, by societal factors, socioeconomic conditions, lack of employment opportunities, poor quality of housing, terrible public health. We've seen a lot of these things happening to break up the family in direct and indirect ways, which has affected, like you said, Robert, the way that young people are being trained, educated, and taught.
Right, absolutely. Caller, what's your question or comment?
My question is there a place, or does your organization offer classes or something that would tell, say, a young black man, like, if you get arrested, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what the officer is supposed to do? The reason why I'm asking that, I can't think of the case, but there was a case, I believe, last year where a young black guy got killed on the south side, and he was running away from the police, but he also had a gun in his hand. And I believe in that case, the judge said that shooting was justified because he did not stop running. And I'm just curious, is there a place where people can go and say, if a police is running behind me, if I have a gun, if he says stop, does he have the right to shoot me? Thank you for taking my call. I want to listen to what you got to say.
Thank you for your comment, caller. Currently, Help 181 do not offer those type of courses. However, I thought maybe the state's attorney office, or there are some Cook County Bar and other bar associations do offer those kind of info sessions for young blacks to attend to learn more about what to do when they're stopped by the police. And I think that we need to have more of those. We need to have more courses or info sessions. We need to go into the schools, and we need to have those conversations with our children because their lives are at stake.
If you can reach out to us at help1save1@hotmail.com and list your question, we will get back to you with an itemized list of organizations that are trying to do those things right now so we can point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Definitely would do that. Thank you so much. So we were kind of talking about family law and the economic disparities, lack of education, all these things that kind of culminates into issues in the Black community. And so,
Well, you mentioned grandparents, Quandra, and we know for a fact that the grandparents were at one time one of the most valuable human resources in the Black home, and that has been taken out. The grandparents are now in senior villages, senior housing, senior developments, and they've been separated. So you do still have some grandparents who may be taking care of their grandchildren or even great-grandchildren for that matter. But for the most part, our community through social engineering has been broken up through lifestyles, through diet, through all of these factors. When we connect the dots, we can see the whole picture. You can identify one at a time, like the shootings that go on in this country. We only address one at a time, but they happen every day. Almost 5 or 10 times a day, someone is being shot down. But then, and that's mass murder if you look at it as a group, as a whole, because over a year period, you have thousands of people who are victims of gunshots.
well, with that, we never really touched on PTSD. I think that also plays a huge role in our children, as well as adults who experience these type of traumas and it's not dealt with. And some of them act out in aggressive ways, especially young children who have to deal with this on a daily basis or a regular basis.
And if our viewers at home remember, our guest on that topic was Gregory Sain, who spoke really intimately about his experiences dealing with young people who are affected by these issues that they confront every single day in Chicago on their way to school, as they walk through Safe Passage, as they go to school in a school that is completely run down with dilapidated facilities and books and things in our communities that modern schools are not, experiencing. There is no standard across the board where all schools are in an environment of excellence. And so Gregory spoke very acutely about those issues.
Yeah, especially these young women and the mothers who also have to deal with their sons and daughters who's been killed by gun violence.
Right. And then we have Paul Pearson, who volunteers at the Juvenile Center, Detention Center.
Absolutely.
And those children have been separated from their families, more so than the families are similar to the families who are separated from their children who are coming across the border. They've been addressed, but the children who are in these juvenile detention centers have not, and they're thousands above what they're taking away from the children of families coming across the border.
And if you look at that, it all encompasses and how we engage civically, which is how we learned about that topic from Valerie Leonard a few weeks ago. And so we were, I think, really did a good job of trying to really bring professional level experts to the community through this show to talk about the issues that we face in civic engagement, police brutality, estate planning, family law, juvenile justice, restorative justice. And I think hopefully Chicago's better off for it.
Absolutely. And we will continue this because this Kerner Commission report, which is 50 years old this past March 1st, we'd like to continue it because this issue needs to be addressed so that we can identify and progress based on the areas of negativity that have been identified in that report.
Absolutely. And we want to thank all our guests for coming on. David E. Trice, attorney Maria Barlow. I believe you mentioned several of our guests, Gregory Sain,
Amara Enya,
Jose Wilson, Paul Pearson. So we really want to thank all of you for joining us. I think you brought a lot of information to the community. And once again, we're Help One, Save One. We really appreciate you all tuning in and listening to us and calling in. We really appreciate that, and I've enjoyed these last 13 weeks, so thank you. Did you want to say something?
Thank
Robert?
you. Quandra has spoken for me. Thank you.
Any last few words?
Robert spoke for me. It was a great show. We hope to re-engage this, topic and other interesting things to discuss that make the quality of life for Black people better, and how we can share that with our viewers at home in Chicago.
Bye.